Hey everybody, welcome, welcome to Hidden Horror. Thank you for spending this time with me. I appreciate that. Let's get started. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Hidden Horror. Today I'm here to bring you an update on a video that I recently did about the amendment to Iraqis' personal status law, excuse me. I want to give you an update so that you know that the law passed, well, the amendment to the law has passed, but also what are the changes that passed? They actually edited what they were amending to, and I'm happy to tell you that the age was not lowered from 18 to 9. That was my primary focus. But also, I just want to talk about what did change in the law, okay? So I want to start off with a video first. And this video is going to let you know, hey, they're already registering these new marriages. And, what does that mean? What is it going to look like? Because to me, they have created a dual system where you get to choose. And once you decide, you cannot change your mind. And who gets to decide? Is it the couple, the husband and the wife, or the husband? We don't know. I don't know, but they get to decide which route they're going to go. And then that law is applied to them. And once they start that, they cannot change that. So that's a big piece. Okay. So let's watch the video first. And then we have an article and then one last video. So I'm going to let you know this video, it comes from Shy Waves English. The title of it is Iraqi Personal Status Courts Begin Registering Marriages Under Ja'afari Jurisprudence. Enlarge that screen and let's listen to the video.
Iraqi MP Ra'id al-Maliki announced that personal status courts in Iraq have started officiating marriage contracts according to Ja'afari jurisprudence. He described this as a legal development aimed at ensuring justice and simplifying marriage procedures in line with Islamic teachings. A recent amendment to Iraq's personal status law grants citizens the choice of registering their marriage under either Shiite or Sunni jurisprudence. Courts now authenticate marriages conducted by authorized religious figures, ensuring all the legal conditions are met. Iraq's personal status law, enacted in 1959, has historically applied to all citizens without sectarian distinction. However, the new amendment allows couples to select their preferred religious framework for personal status matters, a move Shiite groups argue aligns with the Constitution and addresses various family law concerns.
Okay. So that was my first video. I'm closing that video out. Okay. My apologies. I wanted to start with that video so we can kind of lay the foundation that prior to this amendment, there was one law that was being practiced. This amendment allowed there to be is what I'm calling a dual, is two options. And you get to choose. Now, when I say you, I don't know if it's both the male and the female, the husband and the wife, that have the power, if it's just the male. But they're saying that they're going to be able to choose which path they can do it, the way that it used to be, or they can do it under this new way. And it's giving people an option. But there is concern about that option, and that's where my article is coming from. It's from hrw.org. It's titled Iraq Personal Status Law Amendment Sets Back Women's Rights. Okay, so they're concerned about women's rights. They're concerned about human rights, but women's rights, and more so, this change is going to have an effect. So what are the effects, right? Are women going to have the same rights that they had before, or will the choices be solely decided by the husband. That is the concern. Um, those fundamental rights. We talked about it last time in the first video. The child custody, the inheritance laws, all of that. Will that be worked out through the courts and be decided, or will the husband be able to make the decisions? That is what the focus is, besides the bigger picture, which was the age. They did not change the age and lower it to 9, which that was my biggest concern. But I also have concerns about the marital rights, the inheritance, the polygamy, um, the child custody rights, all of those rights, which would fall under the umbrella to me of family law. But let's get to the article, and then we can filter out more of these ideas. Um, After months of legal and political wrangling, an amendment to Iraq's personal status law that entered into force on February 17th, 2025, violates women's and girls' rights to equality before the law and puts them at risk of other abuses, Human Rights Watch said today. So they're worried about them losing rights. They're worried about equality for women. They're worried about, when they say girls, underage rights, protections, right? That's what we're concerned about. Doing them no harm, not making them vulnerable. Okay. Um, Persistent pressure and advocacy by women's rights groups partly reduce the amendment's harm by retaining provisions for the minimum age of marriage, child custody, and polygamy, but the amended law contains other provisions that threaten women and girls' rights. So they're saying that because women came together, they joined together, they unified, they fought against the amendments, that they were not able to push through all of those areas with the child custody, right? With the inheritance changes. By them coming together, raising their voices, protesting, it actually made them step back, and it diminished the strength of all of the changes that would have severely harmed women and children. And again, we have to use our voices. We have to come together, men, women, all who agree and support the idea of having the equality, having women's rights, protections, safety, law, legal inheritance, custody rights. Okay, they applied pressure. They were persistent. They pushed. They advocated for women and children, so that amendment did not go through as initially created and designed. And remember, we know that they tried to push this through. Allegedly, they said over the last 10 years, 4 times. So they were going to keep presenting this, keep recommending this amendment to try to push it through. But people, we don't want to take anybody back decades. No, we're moving forward. We want equality. We want assurances. We want protections for women and for children. Okay. We stand together in that idea. And this is not just a human right, it's really a fundamental human right for both men and women. We want anybody to be married at the age of 9, whether it be a boy or a girl. Okay. It's to protect all. Under the new law, couples concluding a marriage contract, because marriage, you have to remember, marriage is a contract. Both people are signing, agreeing, attesting to what they're going to do. So it is a contract, right? They can choose whether the personal status law of 1959, so I'm going to call it the old way, how things were set up prior, or they can do a personal status code, and then parentheses, they calling it mudawana, to be developed by the Shia Ja'afari School of Islamic Jurisprudence, would govern their marriage, would also govern their divorce, decisions made about the children and the inheritance. So you can do it the old way, Okay. Under the Personal Status Law of 1959 with those protections, right? For women, for children, for the age, for the custody, for the inheritance, all of that. You can do it the old way and you decide. And once you decide, you can't change your mind, right? Option one. Or you can take the second option that's being developed, and it's being developed under the Shia Ja'afari School of Islamic Jurisprudence, and they're going to govern your marriage. They're going to govern your divorce if you have to get a divorce. They're going to govern who gets the children, the custody, right? And they're also going to govern the inheritance. And we have to be mindful, who are they going to protect? Who are they going to uphold? Who are they going to favor? Are they going to be fair? I don't know. I have no idea. But we have to think about that. Why do we need the second option? Okay. When we already have established formed ways to deal with these same issues: child custody, divorce, inheritance, all of that, the marriage. We want to give this second option now. Okay. Couples do not have the right to change their choice later. So once they make a decision, they have to continue on with that decision because they're operating under that decision, right? The arrangement effectively establishes separate legal regimes with different rights accorded to different sects, undermining the right to legal equality for all Iraqis found in Article 14 of the Constitution and international human rights law. So they're saying that because this is, in effect, creating two options, that everybody is being treated differently. But you have to go back to the beginning, which is you get to choose. They're saying that you're going to be able to choose. Now, what happens if you're not informed? If you don't have the knowledge, could you make a bad decision? And what they're saying is, if you make this decision, you make the choice, you can't later change your mind. It's final, okay? So they're concerned about all of this. Okay, let's continue. It's deeply disheartening to see Iraqi leaders move the country backward rather than forward on women and girls' rights, said Sarah Sandbar, Iraq Research and Human Rights Watch. Though the final text includes important revisions, particularly on the minimum age of marriage, these changes merely take the law from terrible to just plain bad. So what she's saying and what I'm going to forecast out, people are watching. I'm in the United States. I am not in Iraq. I'm watching. And when I read the initial amendment, I did not want to bring it to this platform, but I chose to bring it to the platform because, again, what have I said to you? What have I told you? What have I demonstrated? What have I shown you? Case after case after case. This is a form of exposing children to possible abuse. What type of abuse? What type are we really talking about? Physical, possibly sexual, and more. I'm going to stop there because it's a dark path. We know that anyone under the age of 18, but particularly a lowered age of 9 to marry, would put that small child into a vulnerable situation, circumstances that through this marital contract, it would be very hard to break, to cause criminal legal action against one where there is a legal contract of marriage. This is what it comes down to for me. That's why it was my foremost issue and concern. A marital contract with someone under the age, but particularly the age of 9, not even having the ability to comprehend the commitment and responsibilities in a marital relationship. I felt, as I said before, the underlinings fall into the categories of exploitation, as abuse, as assault, possibly physical abuse, and more. Okay. And the world is watching. People all over the world see this as taking steps hundreds of years back, placing women not just at an unequal footing, but a lowered status. And I could say more harsh things, but the inability to make choices, to be wed at the early age of 9, which was suggested, not having rights to inheritance. If you were to have a child with your spouse, you don't have any custody rights. What if you are violated and then that child that's born of the marriage would automatically go to the parent that has violated, harmed her criminally, legally? Okay. Yeah, it has a lot of implications. And to say on the surface, um, it doesn't just take people back years, it creates a different class. Okay. You would have younger generations having babies much earlier. Where's the skills? Will women even have the ability to educate, to go to school? What would be their primary role in the home as a minor? Would it be to cook, to clean? Sounds like servitude at a young age. Let's continue. Yeah. The final text of the amendment specifies that the minimum age of marriage in the mudawana cannot contravene the personal status law. The law sets the legal age for marriage at 18 or 15 with a judge's permission and depending on the child's maturity and physical capacity. So if the personal status law had the age of 18, but there was a provision if the child was mature, and I'm sure if the parent or parents approved or the guardian or guardians approved, they could marry at 15. So what would be the need to lower the age, even lower than 15, to the age of 9? Again, what I've said before, S abuse, pedophilia, etc. The provisions in the final text alleviates concerns that the amendment would have sanctioned marriages of girls as young as 9, but still contravenes the international legal standard that the minimum age for marriage should be 18. So all over the world, different languages, different spaces, different communities, that age has traditionally been at 18. You are legal. You have the ability, the maturity to make the decision for marriage. Not your parents making it for you, not you being wed and not being a child bride. The final text also retains the existing provisions in the personal status law concerning polygamy. Article 3 of the personal status law states polygamy is only allowed with the consent of a judge who must ensure that the husband can support more than one wife and that there is a legitimate interest. I'm not going to even talk about polygamy. This is commonly happening if you're able to provide and support multiple wives. The husband is allowed to marry more than one person. I'm not going to even talk about that. I'm not concerned about that. Regarding child custody, the amendment states that the mudawana code may not include anything that does not align with the best interests of the children and guarantees the right of the parent without custody to meet and communicate with their children in an appropriate manner, duration, and place. So it's pretty much describing a situation where you have a divorce or maybe two people that are not married, and you have to make the best interest for the child, and it's going to guarantee that the parent will have some visitation, some time. Okay, even though they don't have the custody, it's not joint custody, but they will have some physical time with the child. Okay. In the event of a dispute between a husband and wife over which legal regime shall apply, a judge will determine the best interest of both parties. In the previous version, the husband's decision took precedent in violation of Iraq's obligations under international law to uphold equal rights for women. So if they don't agree on the decision, they will go before a judge, and the judge will make the decision, what they're describing as the best interest of both parties. I say if you can't meet and agree before marriage, don't marry. Don't marry that person if you don't have the same mindset, the same thinking. You're going to come into issues. Okay. The improvements in the final version of the amended law are a testament to the power of Iraqi women's organizing and advocacy, but the law still violates women's and girls' rights, Human Rights Watch said. So, again, coming together in unity, one mind, one voice saying no. We have to do something about it. We have to create changes. We have to make this more equal and fair, and we have to protect women and children. They were able to get these changes, okay. But they're still not happy with it, but it's better than what was proposed, and in particular, that age of 9, marry at age of 9, okay. Let's continue. Article 14 of the Iraqi Constitution, as well as international human rights laws, guarantee all Iraqis the right to legal equity. The amended code undermines the principles of equality before the law by establishing different legal regimes for different sects of Islam. Sunni religious scholars oppose the amendment and refuse to participate in drafting their own mudawana, so only the Ja'afari school will do so. The amendment also legalizes unregistered marriages whose harm Human Rights Watch has extensively documented. Human Rights Watch found that unregistered marriages function as loopholes enabling child marriage in Iraq. According to the UN Assistance Mission in Iraq, 22% of unregistered marriages involve girls under the age of 14. It is unclear what impact the legalization of unregistered marriages will have in practice. Well, that's why they're unregistered, because they're going below the threshold of 18 as well as 15 for the mature girl, okay? That's a separate issue. They have to fight that. These unregistered, I don't know how you legalize an unregistered marriage, in particular, if the age is below 15. What is the appropriate response? Is that a crime? What happens to one who weds in an unregistered marriage, who's having a relationship, a marriage with a child? What happens to them? Let's continue. Women's rights groups also fear that granting clerics the authority to conduct marriages will legalize so called pleasure marriages. In such marriages, a cleric arranges a contract with a dowry for a limited duration, ranging from an hour to a few months. Under the contract, neither spouse receives an inheritance, and the husband is not required to pay any spousal maintenance when the contract expires. These marriages have been condemned by women's rights groups as a vehicle for exploitation. If they are 18 and older and they're agreeing to this contract for a set time frame for marriage, that would be between two adults. I don't agree with it, but if it's 18 and older, they're not saying that it's not. If it's 18 and older, it's a contract. I'm going to move on. The amendment gives the Ja'afari School 4 months to develop and submit the mudawana to the House of Representatives, which shall be obligated to approve it and put it into effect within 30 days. This means lawmakers and the general public will not have a chance to review or vote on the mudawana before it becomes law, removing democratic oversight and granting disproportionate power to religious authorities in setting the law, Human Rights Watch said. So this Ja'afari school, they're going to have a 4 month period to develop this mudawana and submit it to the House of Representatives. The people are saying that typically they have to go for a vote before it becomes a law. But it doesn't sound like that's the process that's happening. It sounds like they're going to submit the mudawana to the House of Representatives, and then it's going to be into effect within 30 days of that timing. I don't know what the legal process is to change that or alter that, or does there need to be a more formalized process put into the amendment to direct how that should go? I just don't know. I don't have enough information. Let's continue. The full extent of the changes will not be clear until the mudawana is submitted. Yet, under the Ja'afari school, a divorced woman has no right to the marital home, spousal maintenance, or her dowry, and her children will continue living with her for only 2 years, regardless of their age, contingent on her not remarrying. Wow. That tells me don't select the mudawana. Go with the status law if you can choose. It doesn't give you any protections, okay? You don't have the right to the marital home. You don't have a right to spousal maintenance. You don't have a right to your own dowry. And then your children would only live with you for 2 years. And all this is contingent on you not remarrying. You can't move on after a divorce. Why would you select this as an option? This is a bad choice for women in general. Let's continue on. Parliament passed the Personal Status Law Amendment alongside other legislation, including the Property Restitution Law and an amendment to the Second General Amnesty Law, together in a single vote on January 21st, 2025, rather than voting on each law individually. Several Parliament members then filed a lawsuit with the Federal Supreme Court accusing the Parliament Speaker, Mahmoud al-Mashhadani, of procedural irregularities and violations of the voting process. And that's probably because they put the two uh, issues or bills or legislation together to get it to pass. That is a way to get that done. They do that sometimes in the United States. They call them omnibus bills, where they put a lot of stuff together and stuff that you really need. They put the bad legislation in there to just get it to pass on, okay? But let's continue on. On February 11th, the federal Supreme Court annulled a state order it had issued on February 4th, halting enforcement of the three laws. President Abdul Latif Rashid then ratified the three laws on February 13th, and they entered into force on February 17th. The amendment violates the International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, which Iraq ratified in 1986 by depriving women and girls of their rights on the basis of their gender. The amendment also violates the International Convention on the Rights of the Child, which Iraq ratified in 1994 by legalizing child marriage, putting girls at risk of forced and early marriage, leaving them susceptible to abuse, and not requiring decisions about children in divorce cases to be made in the best interests of the child. The draft amendment appears to violate the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights by depriving certain people of their rights on the basis of their religion. The ripple effects created by passing this law will reach far and wide, likely changing the fabric of Iraqi society at the expense of Iraqi women and girls' independence and ability to make their own decisions, Sambar said. Well, the good thing is we have all kind of platforms, we have all kind of news organizations, and we have all kind of groups that care about women, that care about children, that care about keeping women and children safe, protecting them, upholding their rights, seeking equality. And we just have to keep getting this message out. Okay, we have to share this information. Now, I want to share one last video. It's talking about they're going to set a space where people can come together to talk about the amendment, to express their concerns, and what can we do about it? What can we do as a unit, as a whole, to get more of this legislation, this amendment, to be more equitable towards women and children, to protect them. So let me share my screen. This video is only three and a half minutes long. It's by EIDE TV. It's titled Iraq's Personal Law Amendment, Justice or Political Bargain. London 9/5/25. I believe that the date is wrong. I think the date is actually May 9th, 2025, not September 5th, 2025. But let's check out the video. Let's listen to what they have to say.
Institute for Dialogue and Development, in cooperation with the Humanitarian Dialogue Foundation, is organizing a seminar in London on May 9, 2025, titled The Debate on Amending the Personal Status Law in Iraq Between Constitutional Obligations and Changing Realities. For several months, Iraq has witnessed heated debates over various laws. Some of these laws caused tension, legal disputes, and even conflict with the parliament. The controversy extended to the media and social platforms and became a common topic of public discussion. Eventually, a political deal was made to pass these laws. This deal itself became controversial and was challenged in the Federal Supreme Court. One of the key outcomes of this deal was the amendment of Personal Status Law 188 of 1955, which was published in the official newspaper, number 1 of 2025 on February 18, 2025. Supporters of this amendment refer to Articles 2, First A and 41 of the Iraqi Constitution, while opponents refer to Articles 2, First B and C and 14. Each side believes the Constitution supports its position and argues that the amendments will either solve or create social problems. The seminar aims to shed light on this ongoing local and international debate over the amendment of the personal status law in Iraq. It also aims to explore different viewpoints on the amendment, focusing on its legal and political background and the reasons behind proposing the change. This includes examining the legal and political disputes in Parliament, the reasons for the political deal that enabled the amendment, and the controversies surrounding that deal. The session will also examine the constitutional articles used by both sides and discuss the possible effects of the amendment on Iraqi society, especially its impact on women and families. It will explore whether the amendment helps solve social problems or create new ones, and whether it aligns with the Iraqi constitution. The discussion will also look at how the amendment reflects Iraq's social changes and international obligations, and whether it suits global developments. Finally, the seminar will offer a space for open and constructive dialogue between legal experts, researchers, activists, and the public. The goal is to better understand the debate, highlight key issues objectively, and offer recommendations that support justice while staying true to the spirit of the Constitution and applying critical legal thinking.
Okay, so let's just wrap this up. Hi, Sinclair. You know what, Sinclair? I do too. I don't want these changes to set women and children back. Not only am I concerned about their physical health, I'm also concerned about their mental health. If they can't make decisions, if they can't be educated, if they can't control their destiny, their fate, where does that leave them? If they're allowed to marry already at the age of 15 with their maturity, okay? Um, are they starting a family very young before they even mature, before they even grow, before they even develop? Are they being able to still pursue their goals, their dreams? Even at the age of 18, 18 is still very young. Do they have the freedom of choice? Do they have the freedom of choice? Making that large commitment, making a contract, a marital contract, it's not at the it's really not at the forefront of young people minds, especially in the United States. No one is thinking at 15, 16, 17, 18. Very few are thinking of marriage. Most people are just trying to get out of the formalized matriculation through high school. They want to graduate. They want to figure out, what do I do next? They're not thinking about a huge commitment, signing a contract, let alone producing and starting a family, and all of those commitments. I am concerned, is this going to set them back? Are they going to have children, or possibly multiple children at a young age, which ties them to that commitment first? Being a parent, being a mother, being a provider, being a protector. That's a huge commitment at an early age. And sometimes you have to make choices. You might have to sacrifice, put yourself to the side to now rear up these young children. And if you decide to get a divorce, that's going to impact you, because now you have to consider things like custody, the inheritance, right? All of these things, we don't want to have an unequal footing. We don't want to have decisions that are made that are not in the best interest of the children from the marriage, but also an unfairness to women. If you remove the woman out of the child's life through a divorce and they only have 2 years, what if that child is 1? They're not going to be reared by their mom after the age of 3 or 4. That is a long time. These are pivotal years. And children, they need both their parents, but they particularly need their mom. Okay. It's just a lot of things to think about. And, I'm very concerned. This may keep a woman in a marriage much longer than if she had those fundamental rights. Um, you can't keep your dowry. Um, the inheritance issues, just a lot. So um, I wanted to just bring that update so you will know that the amendment did pass, but it did not pass as initially presented. Okay. Sinclair says in 2017, the literacy rate for women was at 79%. Yeah, I'm really concerned about their education and is there issues with access now and continuing education? What if you want to learn a skill? What if you want to go to college? Would a married woman even have the ability to make those decisions? You know, a lot of people in the United States, they go away. That means that they leave outside of the home and they go away to some other area, whether it be within the state where they live or out of state. They go to college somewhere else. How does that work in a marital contract? Who makes those decisions? Um, it's very concerning. But I believe these issues have been fostering for a long time and they're coming to the forefront. And now is the time to talk about it, to show some support and also education. We have to educate ourselves. We have to care about others in different areas. So thank you, Sinclair, for all of your comments. I really appreciate them. Just appreciate you in general. And I just want to tell the community, hey, listen, please let me know what you think. Please share this information. Um, I don't think this is going away. They have the summit set, and I'm calling the summit, but the gathering set for May 9th, 2025. So I would try to come back if I'm provided with an update. I would try to bring that. But I was extremely concerned. Again, I have shown you cases where, for example, Terry Ray Krieger was allowed. He had prior sexual assault history, criminal activity. He was allowed to be released, and allegedly he did it again. And he's in these other countries. And, we have to protect children. We have to protect children from these dangerous situations and women, but more specifically children. We don't want to create laws that make them more vulnerable. Okay. Thank you again, St. Clair. You have a beautiful day. And just thank everybody for spending this time with me. I really, on these subjects, like this is not related to religion at all. I'm not going to talk about religion. This is about protecting women and children, period. So please let me know what you think and stay safe, stay smart, stay savvy. Be well, all my friends. Bye, everybody.